Welcome to today's video on Unit 6, Part 4. We're going to talk about rectangles. And a rectangle is a type of parallelogram that just has 4 right angles. So in order to figure out if a parallelogram is a rectangle, there's a couple things that you can notice. Number one, in a rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. They don't just bisect each other, but the diagonals are congruent. So if the diagonals of any parallelogram are congruent, then we know the parallelogram is a rectangle. So for a problem like this, a rectangular garden gate is reinforced with diagonal braces to prevent it from sagging. If JK is 12 feet, so JK is 12, LN is 6.5. Find KM. Well, remember, in a parallelogram, diagonals bisect each other. So that means this is 6.5. So that means that is 13. So KM is also 13. Because remember, in a rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. So here, quadrilateral EFGH is a rectangle. If GH is 6, FH is 15 feet, find GJ. Well, if FH is 15, that means when you divide it in half, you get 7.5 and 7.5. So that means GJ is also 7.5. All right, so last one, quadrilateral RSTU is a rectangle. If the measure of angle RTU here is 8x minus 4, and SUR is 3x plus 2, find x. Well, remember, these are isosceles triangles, because remember, not only are the diagonals congruent, but they bisect each other, right? So that means that if this is 3x plus 2, so this is going to be 8x minus 4 here, because the base angles of an isosceles triangle are congruent. So that means if you add up these two angles here, that should be a right angle because it's a rectangle. So 8x minus 4 plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 90 degrees. So 11x minus 2 equals 90. Then you add 2, so 11x equals 92. So x is equal to 92 divided by 11, which when you calculate that, equals 8.4. So there's x. All right, so the next one, next page. Oops, sorry. So the next page, quadrilateral EFGH is a rectangle. If the measure of FGE, so FGE is 6x minus 5, and HFE is 4x minus 5. Find x. Well, remember, once again, it's a rectangle, so that means all 4 parts of the diagonals are congruent. So that means this is 6x minus 5. So that means you have 6x minus 5 plus 4x minus 5 equals 90. So that means 10x minus 10 equals 90. 10x equals 100. So x equals 10. There you go. All right, the next one, quadrilateral Jklm has vertices, and it gives you them. Determine whether Jklm is a rectangle by using the distance formula. Well, to use the distance formula, you would want to prove that the diagonals are congruent. So you would want to prove that JL is equal to KM. So using the distance formula, you would go -2 minus 3 squared plus 3 minus -2 squared. So it's -5 squared plus 5 squared. So it's equal to 25 plus 25, which is the square root of 50. And if you simplify the square root of 50, it becomes 5 rad 2. Km is equal to the square root of 1 minus 0 squared plus 4 minus -3 squared. So it's the square root of 1 squared plus 7 squared. So it's the square root of 1 plus 49, which is the square root of 50. So since the diagonals are congruent, JKLM is a rectangle. There you go. So that's how you use the distance formula to prove it's a rectangle. All right, so here's the next question. Quadrilateral WXYZ has vertices, and it gives you the vertices. What are the lengths of the diagonals, and then is it a rectangle? So WY, you gotta find using -2 minus 3 squared plus 1 minus 1 squared. So it's -5 squared plus 0 squared. So 25 plus 0 square root of 25 is 5. So XZ, XZ is -1 minus 2 squared plus 3 minus -1 squared. So it's the square root of -3 squared plus 4 squared. So it's 9 plus 16, which is the square root of 25, which is also 5. So when it asks the question, is it a rectangle? Yes, it is a rectangle because the diagonals are congruent. All right, so then here you have your picture. WXYZ is a rectangle, and it says ZX is 6x minus 4, WY is 4x plus 14. Find ZX. Well, you need to find X, and remember the diagonals are equal, so 6x minus 4 equals 4x plus 14. Subtract 4x, so you get 2x, add 4. So x equals 9, so ZX equals 6 times 9 minus 4, so it's equal to 50. All right, so then WXY is right here, 6a squared minus 6. Well, 6a squared minus 6 is equal to 90, because that's what the angle equals. So you add 6, so you get 6a squared equals 96. Divide by 6, and you get a squared equals 16. Take the square root, and you get a equals plus or minus 4, but remember that in this case, the a can't be negative, so we'll just make it positive 4. All right, and last but not least, it says WY is 26, so WY is 26. WR is 3y plus 4, so that means 3y plus 4 times 2, because these are equal, is equal to 26. So 6y plus 8 equals 26. Subtract 8. So you get 6y equals 18. Y equals 3. All right, that concludes our video on rectangles. Up next are rhombi and squares. Have a good evening.